Okay, in this recording, it's my intent to show you how to adjust the bottom edge of a pattern when you have, several rows. Let's say in this case I have 4 rows left, or I have 2 rows left. I have 4 rows, 2 are quilted and 2 are unquilted. But I need to adjust the bottom of my pattern, either increase it to fill in the bottom, or maybe I have more pattern than what I need. Here's the idea. See, my crosshair is located right along the top edge of this next row that I'm going to quilt. What I do is I place a tape measure, just a little plastic tape measure right where the needle is, and I measure to the bottom of the quilt. Okay, I have these 2 rows, and I'm going to draw a box around them to select those 2 rows. Draw to the right and down to enclose all the repeats in the last 2 rows. Notice over here in this box we'll get the number that tells us that there's 29.43 inches of pattern left. Suppose that I measure this and I have maybe 30.5 inches of quilt left. Now, it's been suggested that we can change this number to 30.5 and let Creative Studio adjust the pattern, and I'm telling you, this is not the way to do this. So I put in my 30.5. Now notice the freeze aspect is on, and if I click up here, notice the width is 80.57 the way it is, and if I click in that spot, notice what happens. It changed the width and it changed the height. It changed the height to 30.5, which is what I need. It also changed the width. You can see now the sides are outside the boundary. But what's more important is look what it did to it. Moved the top edge of the pattern up into the row that's already been quilted, and I guarantee you it will quilt that way. It will sew into the previous row. So this is not what we want to do. It's also expanded it down this way a little bit, so that's not what we want to do. So I go Control Z to get out of that. And you say, well, why don't we just select them, those 2 rows, and let's turn off the freeze aspect. Notice I selected them as 20.43 because I used Control Z to undo my last operation. I turn off the freeze aspect. I put 30.5 in there. 30.5. And when I click in this spot, the width, it didn't change the width, it changed the height to 30.5, but also notice it also moved the pattern up into the previous row. So that won't work. Again, I'm going to do a Control Z. Then I'm going to show you that if you decide that you don't need to increase the size of the pattern, but you need to decrease the size of the pattern. Okay, it's back to 29.42. It's back to the space that I actually need. So suppose I only need 28.5 and I change this. And I click here. Notice it increased the space between the rows here, so we don't want that either. And again, I'm going to use Control Z, and I'm going to get out of that. So neither method that I tried worked. So now I'm going to show you the way that you should do it. Let's select all of the repeats and rows that are left. Okay, it's 29.43. Suppose I do need 30 inches or 30.5 or whatever. Notice I have these purple or bluish handles. This tells me that I have the edge anchor turned on. That means that if I want to increase the size or decrease the size, I want this top edge to remain anchored in this fixed position that it is. I don't want it to decrease or I don't want it to increase. So the way to adjust this is grab the bottom wedge and just increase it until you get the number you need. There's $29.99. Maybe I need 30.5, 30.55. And it's easier to do if you really zoom in close. So notice, if you notice as I do this, the top edge does not move. It stays anchored. Now, you can either increase or maybe you only need to decrease. Maybe you don't have quite as much quilt top left. So when you let go, it will tell you, or it will show you what you have left of the pattern right here. Notice as I move this wedge, it moves the pattern. It increases or decreases the size of the pattern. This is the only way that you should adjust the bottom edge of the pattern to fit the quilt.